All right. We're getting a little creative here. Usually I have a microphone with me and then I record all these events. I'm going to set the stage up a little bit. Pun intended. I'm going to do a little like Mr. Rogers. You guys ever watch the show? Oh! Am I in frame?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, it's a lovely day in the neighborhood. I'm gonna get comfortable. So my name is David Matthews. I'm from Ozark, Alabama. I'm running to be your next congressman. And I'll be honest, I never know what I'm gonna say when I get in front of a group of people. Dylan's seen me speak 100 times. He'll agree. I try to swap it up every time. But let's see. I try to read the room and kind of just draw inspiration.
Matt, make sure you do the kids joke.
I could. I'll get to that. So, like I mentioned, I'm from Ozark, Alabama. I met my wife working on Donald Trump's first presidential campaign. He had me in charge of the western 34 counties of Pennsylvania, which is one of the most important swing states, if not the most important swing state in the country. And I met my wife at that time, at the end of the primary in 2016. And we now have 5 young babies. And Dylan's heard this joke 100 times. It's not really a joke, it's just me. So the ages of our children are 7, 6, 5, 4, and our youngest just turned 1 in May. And as of tomorrow, our 7-year-old's going to be 8 years old. So my wife, Emily, and I, we've been raising kids throughout this wild experience the last 10 years. I've worked in both Trump administrations, which is very rare for anyone running for office to have experience like that. Working for a president is unique, but the positions that I've held in the executive branch are extremely rare. So I worked in several different agencies in the first and second term, but the 2 most important to our district, the first one being the Farm Service Agency. And if you're in agriculture, whether that be raising livestock, doing row crops or specialty crops or raising timber, you know exactly what the Farm Service Agency is. It's a very important part of our executive branch. And I worked alongside the administrator of that agency for 3 years and 7 months. And the administrator is essentially in charge of everything. At the time when I was there were 15,000 federal employees. Almost every town has an FSA office. Most of them do. And I helped him run that agency. Very interesting experience. I learned a lot about agriculture policy that most people in the House and the Senate never get exposed to. Very valuable experience. In the second term, I came back last year in March, and I was appointed to be a senior executive. I was the director of state operations for 3 different agencies at the USDA. So it was the Rural Utilities Service, the Rural Business Cooperative Service, and the Rural Housing Service. And the government programs that me and my staff helped implement across the country are very important. Very important. And not many people even know they exist, which is an interesting tidbit. So in the year and 2 months I was there, my staff, we put $34 billion out into rural communities, not cities, usually towns with 50,000 people or less. And I mentioned this before I came up here, water infrastructure is a big one, housing programs, business development finance, economic development, telecom and broadband, and electric infrastructure. And $34 billion is a lot of money, but in most cases that money is blended with private money. So it could be over $50 to $60 billion worth of projects that my staff helped complete. And during that time, I was in charge of 2,500 employees. I had 53 people reporting directly to me. It was a really unique experience, and I was doing it when I was 37 and now 38. And in May, I got a call. It was May 20th on a Wednesday. this is not that long ago. I think it was 70, 75, 78 days ago. I just feel like 5 years ago. 78 days ago, I get a call, and I'm busy with my work, and when you're in these capacities, you don't have the luxury of being able to pay attention to politics and maps being redrawn. But I got a call and was informed that the maps changed, and there was the qualification period reopened, and I was encouraged to jump in this race. And at that time, I kind of laughed because I knew the window's short. There's other people that are running that have been going for months, in some cases years. What are the odds? And so after that call, I reached out to my mentors. I've got a lot of mentors across the country that I've connected with, and that I rely on in a lot of cases, and talk to people in the administration and friends and family, and naturally my wife. And I couldn't find a good reason not to do this. And to me, it appeared as if God was showing me a path that I had to step on. And that's a whole different story about how my wife and I look for direction to take our family. We take it from a position of faith. And so when that path presented itself, I stepped on it, even given the adversity that was ahead, and went unemployed with 5 kids. I don't have a job right now. And that was a difficult decision. But I knew it had to be done. Because I've worked in DC for some time now, and I've seen what goes on up there. I'll say, you guys are blessed, and you don't even know it. I'm serious. You get to elect people, and you send them up there, and you're blessed that you don't see what goes on after they go up there. It's very bad. You may scratch your head and wonder, why isn't this problem fixed? We've been talking about it for years. Or why aren't they doing what they said they were going to do? And this is another thing I talk about all the time. People usually jump to the conclusion of corruption. That's usually the first thing that comes to their mind. They're corrupt. They're paid for. If I had to guess what percentage of corruption it actually is, it's probably around 2 to 3%. Do you know what it really is? Why things don't get done up there? It's because no one knows what they're doing. I'm serious. I want to believe it's corruption. I think other people want to believe it's corruption, because when you have that mindset to believe it's corruption, that means it has to be sophisticated. They're up there, they're doing these, deals under the table. No, that's not it. There are people that we elect into office, they go to DC, and they're not figuring it out. They just aren't. That's the biggest question I have. Why can't they figure it out? That's one of the things I want to go up there and learn if I do become the next congressman. But I've been inside of a black box in the executive branch. This is a part of the federal government that the legislative branch largely dictates. They decide how much money it gets, how much staff they have, how much funding each program has, how each program operates. And in the executive branch, I'm on the receiving end of their decisions. I get to see not only what their decisions are, but I implement their policy, and I get to see how it affects the country. And when you see it from that perspective, it's very alarming. It's very alarming. We have people up there making decisions that are destroying our nation. And I have a lot of these videos where I talk about this at a granular level. All my speeches, for the most part, are online on Facebook or YouTube. But one example is the timber industry. And timber's big in Bullitt County. It's really big in Alabama. I think we're the third most timber-covered state in the country. So it's very, very important to our economy. The Obama administration, with the stroke of a pen, really put a nail in the coffin of the timber industry. I have a video, it's called The Alaska Man. I talk about how I learned that happened. They essentially changed the year that foresters could harvest a tree. And it destroyed, it started the destruction of the industry. And hundreds of sawmills and forestry companies went out of business within years. And it's only getting worse. And it's because, there's the saying, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. It's people that go up there, they think they're making a decision that has good intentions, but the results are devastating. And so when this path showed itself on May 20th, I could not in good faith just continue on the path I was and hope for the best. I really couldn't.
Do either of you guys have any questions?
No. Throw me some zingers.
I like your comment about the corruption that's what we think about Bullock County, but
Mhm.
we have come to find out our elected leaders don't know what they're doing. Can't make a decision.
Yeah.
So what makes me feel better about Bullock County, because we know they don't know what they're doing.
They'll tell you they don't know what they're
They
doing.
don't know what they're doing. And I'll reinforce that because I guess it was 30 years ago, I was a non-paid lobbyist for a judicial and for a Christian Jewish group, and we were trying to keep everything in the state, in the schools. We were trying to save the Constitution, working with Judge Moore. And it took less than 30, it was heartbreaking to
Mhm.
work in the house up there in Montgomery, because when you would see good people go in there, within 30 to 60 days, they get inundated by people who have a financial interest, lobbyists in particular,
Yeah.
and they don't know what to do. They honestly have no base. And I'll say this, Barbara, our best politicians do not win. The people that are most qualified do not win.
Well, they can.
Well, we wish they could.
They can.
Okay.
Can I comment on that for a second? What you said about incompetence. So I'll say in defense of the people that are causing a lot of the issues and the incompetence that goes on. These positions are extremely difficult. I would say they're impossible to be perfect doing. When you are up in the House or the Senate, you are inundated with problems, either just in your district or your country, and it comes from all directions. They're all completely different from one another. And they call it drinking from the fire hose when you're in this position. There's so much coming at you that unless you're really good at drinking from the fire hose, you're going to miss a lot of it, or it's going to fall through the cracks. There are problems that come to you and you're like, I'll get it done, and then something else hits you and you forget about it. And the thing with me, for whatever reason, I am very good at drinking from a fire hose. And when I manage those 2,500 employees and have 53 people reporting to me, and we helped get $34 billion out into the country, even though Doge reduced our staff by 42%, I can drink from a fire hose. I've been drinking from it for a while. And if I go up there, I promise you this, and I pray that you get to see this one day, hopefully soon. If I go up there, you will be very surprised at the things that can be done in this capacity as a congressman.
Going back to forest, I'm a member of the Alabama Forestry Association.
Mm-hmm.
And our newsletter constantly tells us about these sawmills closing down.
Mm-hmm.
They're told Canada and Chinese.
Tariffs, yep.
Somebody. That's very true.
Yeah, I can talk about that as well. And I've been focusing directly on the timber industry for some time. It started when the age of a tree being harvested was changed back during Obama, and then things kept happening. When the president brought tariffs against Brazil and Canada, one of the things they did is they flooded our market with their cheap timber, and that was devastating. We're still dealing with that. But if I go up there, and here's the thing. Most candidates can talk about the problems. I know the solutions. There's a program that I used to work on called the Timber Production Expansion Program. And it was a temporarily funded program. And I'll try not to get too deep into the weeds here, but if I go up to DC, I want to put something in the Farm Bill that codifies the Timber Production Expansion Program so that it's permanent and that there's funding always available for sawmills to receive financing that's very inexpensive compared to what they would normally get. And there's other things I want to do as well. But yeah, I'm throwing a lot at you here. I apologize.
Well, y'all have a problem we have is older than trucks that are here. So,
Yeah.
but that's a whole other issue for someone else.
Well, and the insurance agencies are really hard on people transporting lumber, from what I hear. It's like the smallest mistake, they'll pull their insurance, and that is another devastating thing.
Okay, that brings up three questions I have now.
Okay.
First question, you said you were working with utilities.
Mm-hmm.
Why aren't companies like Alabama Power regulated on all of the money they spend on advertising when we aren't even given a choice and they are guaranteed a percentage of their profits?
That's a great question.
Second,
Okay.
how do you feel about our timber being cut to set up solar panels? Bullitt County's fixing to get, how many thousands of acres are fixing to be?
Okay, yeah.
And third, what was the third one? I just forgot it. Okay.
I can touch on those first two first. So the first one was, why is Alabama Power allowed to dump so much money in advertising when they essentially have a monopoly on our power? I don't know.
3 to 5% profit?
I don't know if we could stop their advertising. They probably would say that's within their First Amendment rights. But there's a group on Facebook called Alabama Power Corruption. Have you heard of that? There's 81.2 thousand people that follow it. There are certain things, and don't get me wrong, Alabama Power is very important to our state for a lot of reasons. But there are certain restrictions on solar where if you generate them at your home, like if you generate enough power for your house and you have the capacity to feed it back into the grid, from what I hear, and don't quote me on this, you get penalized for that. When in some other states you get paid for it, which should be the case. I mean, we all need lower energy prices. And I need to do more research on Alabama Power, but a lot of people are upset with them, I will say. And my energy bill, you don't even want to know what it was last month.
I know what mine is.
Is it $921? That's what mine was.
700 and something.
Well, and then the other comment about taking down timberland and putting up solar. So when I was at the USDA, one of the things we did was restrict any government financing or grants towards solar projects that go on prime agriculture land. Now, I do not know if timberland was also incorporated into that. I'll have to go look. But that was one of the most important things we did while I was up there, was restricting large solar projects on ag land.
Alabama
Because,
Power is involved in the purchasing the development of this.
okay.
So,
Well, the way they probably skirted that was they're not using federal funding for it, and that's how they got around it. But I am very much against destroying our ag land. I mean, once you put solar on it, you can't take it back. Well, there's a lot of things to it. You have the cement, but these solar panels, they're developed in China, and they have these PFAS chemicals in them. It's forever chemicals. And if you were to damage those, the PFAS gets into the ground and you can't plant there anymore, because those chemicals, they get into the plants. If you have livestock that graze on that grass and they ingest it and it's in the meat, it could be in the milk if it's a dairy cow. And you can't get, it's a forever chemical.
Yeah.
this one here is going to be adjacent to one of our biggest hunting lodges, which hunting lodges is a good deal of this.
Yes. I mean, it's huge.
Oh yeah.
Huge, and it's going to be a
Probably the only industry this county has. It's about the only industry this county has.
I bet y'all have some nice whitetail here. Yeah.
I'm going to have to ask you because of time.
Sure, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank y'all for having me. And